Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NoCode Required webinar. Um, we're just gonna wait for people to join for the next maybe 2 to 3 minutes. But while we do that, let's talk about some house rules, because who doesn't like rules? Um, we only have two rules for this webinar. The first one is if you have a question, please add it to the Q&A box. If you put it in the chat, it might get lost, but if you put in the Q&A, the panelists and the speakers will all see it, and so your question will obviously get answered. But if you also want to interact with other participants and have comments or just things that are not necessarily questions, please use the chat box, use the reactions. Let's be lively and let's have a great webinar. Um, so I'm just gonna start in like 1 minute. So let's just give more people a chance to trickle in and we can go on. All right, so I'm gonna start with a bit of an introduction. My name is Jess. I am the founder of No Code Techies, and I also like to say that I am the biggest cheerleader of non-coders in the world because they're just like me. And I will be your host and moderator for today's event. I'm really excited to spend the next 2 hours with you all learning about no code tech career opportunities, what it entails, as well as practical steps that you can actually start taking today to build a thriving career for yourself. But before we get into it, right, we need to break the ice and learn a little bit about each other. So, if you can give me 1 minute to set it up, we can get started on playing a game. All right, so you should be seeing a slide that has a question and a QR code. So if you can use your phone to scan the QR code, you can be in the game. But if you're maybe joining on your phone, you can also go to slido.com and enter the code 4250167 to take part in this game. And the question here is basically, what country are you joining us from? Just type in your question and let's see where people are participating from. I can see people already typing. Exciting. Okay, South Africa, Ghana, Morocco, amazing. Kosovo, Canada. Oh, this is perfect. Nigeria. Oh, it's Ghana. Seems like many people are coming from Ghana, from the UK. That's great. I'm calling from the UK. Lovely. This is amazing. Please keep telling us where you're joining from because that is exciting. It looks like we have people from already five countries, actually 6 countries on here. Nice. Right. I will now move us to the next question in our little game. Um, so the next question is, in one word, what is your expected outcome at the end of this webinar? Um, I mean, I did say one word, but if you want a phrase, you can also use a phrase. We're not very strict here. Grow, loving that. Indio. Okay. I don't know what Indio is, but maybe I need to get a dictionary. Enlightenment, knowledge, cheat code. Great. You're going to get all the cheat codes to be informed, support, insights. Amazing. This is really interesting because no two people have said the same thing. I like that. Everyone is very unique in this webinar. Tips and tricks. Yeah. Loving the responses. Okay, I'll just give 1 more minute for someone else to add a little, like their own word. Yep, I can see someone typing. Exposure, amazing. So we got exposure, cheat code, getting enlightened, growing, getting knowledge, support. This is amazing. And our brand new word, Indio, people. Indio, keep it in your mind. Thank you so much, all of you, for participating in our little icebreaker. I am so glad that you did it. So now let's get straight into the crux of the webinar, right? So let me tell you a little bit of a story of the typical life of a Ghanaian graduate. So in Ghana, as it is also maybe in Nigeria, you finish uni, the first thing that happens is that you go into national service or NYSC, as our Nigerian friends have. And once you finish that, hopefully you get a job either as a civil servant or in the in the private sector, which could be a job in sales, HR, marketing, maybe banking. Or if you were in uni for like a direct skill type of job, maybe you went to do nursing, you finish, you become a nurse. If you went to do teaching, you finish and you become a teacher, right? um if you're like me, I was fortunate enough to get a job in the private company, and so that was sort of like my story. And of course, for many of us, we hear a lot of stories, and we hear a lot about the tech industry. But in those conversations, it's usually centered around people learning to code, becoming software engineers, and basically getting into STEM. In fact, in the past decade or two, there has been a big and a very good push for STEM topics as a way forward, as a way to get into the tech space and beyond, right? But you probably are like me and you don't really have any interest in coding or engineering. Maybe you're like me, and when you were in high school, your favorite thing was writing stories in your English language essays for school, and you're trying to figure out where do you fit in this entire like story. Or maybe you were a visual arts student and you want to go work as a designer, and so on and so forth, right? There's so many of us that this over indexing on like the STEM or engineering or coding as a way to enter the tech space does not necessarily like relate for us. And so the question here becomes, does it mean that a job in the tech space is not for you? Of course, the answer is no. And so when I think about my own transition and story from being a sales manager in the FMCG space and watching my transition, watching my friends who have transitioned from health, education into various tech roles, I realized that there's something there. There's a place for the rest of us who are not necessarily coders. And basically, as it's very part of my nature, I wanted to stand on the rooftop and shout out to everyone and say, listen, there's something good here. You need to come and take like and grab that opportunity, right? And so, what is that opportunity? Um, and how can we grab it with both hands? That's the whole point of this webinar. So let's talk a bit about the opportunity that really, really exists. And here I'm going to give you some numbers so that if this ever comes up when you're out of this webinar, you will have some numbers to remember and share with other people. But the first one is that on average, 54%, so more than half of the job ads that you see on LinkedIn are for non-coding roles or are for non-engineering roles. Again, when you look at companies like Amazon, Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, you see that more than 50%, and if you're thinking of Amazon, about 80% of their employees are non-coders. If that seems a bit too far-fetched for you, in my own company that I work for in Localize, there's 70 of us in the team, and out of that 70, only about 14 of them are engineers, and the rest of us do no code work. And that tells you that in the real world, there's way more opportunities in terms of numbers for no code roles than you probably think there was, right? So you're probably asking, okay, yes, there's the numbers, there's opportunities, like why should I care? Here's four reasons why you should go out of here thinking, oh my God, I need to find a way to transition into this space. The first one is that aside the fact that in tech, there's way more non-coding roles than there are coding roles, the tech world itself is growing 4 times faster than all the other industries at present. And so it means that there's 4 times more hiring potential for you if you start to look into that direction. The second thing is that most of us are joining from Ghana, Nigeria, and so we're not necessarily in the places where the hiring hubs for tech were a few years ago. But post COVID, there's been such a high uptake of remote opportunities that it's now better than ever for you to start thinking about getting a job in the tech space as a non-coder. The third thing is that there's significantly more earning potential if you enter the tech space than if you did not. And like the conservative number that I've seen is you can 3x your salary if you were working in a traditional role than if you were in the tech space. Obviously, that is a conservative number. It can go as high as 10x in what you're making currently. And that basically quickens your process to financial liberation as a person, especially coming from lower income areas or developing countries like myself, who is from Ghana or from Nigeria. And so that gives you like a jump start to your own financial liberation, which of course then affects everybody else in your space. And then finally, if you consider a job in a no-code tech career, you get access to way more career paths, because let's say the story that I told at the beginning of a typical Ghanaian graduate applies to you. Not only do you get access to that, but then you also get access to all the plethora of opportunities that the tech space has for no code techies, which obviously, as you heard, is more than 50% in every company that you work in. And so I want to say congratulations to you for joining this webinar and taking this very important step to better your future in an active way. And also, thank you for allowing myself and the panelists and the whole NoCode Techies organization to contribute to you hitting this amazing career goal. And with that said, this is what is coming up in the rest of our webinar. So we're going to start with a conversation that will show you a step-by-step guide on transitioning from wherever you are right now into a no-code tech career. We're going to have a panel discussion with amazing career experts about how you can land your dream job. And then we're going to have someone like you who has made a successful transition into the tech space as a no-code techie share her success story so you can pick some tips and tricks. And then we're going to have a Q&A session and we're going to close. And so without further ado, help me welcome Joel Adaman to take us through the transition careers step-by-step guide.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
Woohoo!
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. I'm just going through the list of attendees, and I see familiar names. I'm excited about that. And thanks for honoring our invitation. My session is going to take about 20 to 25 minutes. And I don't want to introduce myself much. My name is Joel Anaman, the lead career success coach and the founder of Career Wheel. I also build Mandy on the side, which is a smart career journal that helps you to document the stuff that you do at work. Beyond that too as well, my main job, I work with M-Pharma as a senior product manager. So I transitioned from pharmacy into tech. So that tells you that, I mean, it's more real than it seems. You just need to put in the work. And what I seek to achieve with this session is to help you have some level of certainty as to how to even choose what you want to transition into. And then some basic playbook that you could use so that throughout that journey, you'll be able to move through that level of certainty and eventually transition, giving yourself like a very flexible timeline. So I believe, Jess, we can take it to the next slide. And oh, yeah, one thing, it's going to be very interactive. So for each step, I'm going to run you through a poll. So there'll be a poll in the chat section. Is there a chat section or a poll section? Just please educate me.
It's a poll section and I
Oh,
just
right.
set it live. So you should see a poll and just feel free to choose your answer.
Ah, I love it. I love it. It takes over the screen. Fantastic. So yes, we are going to start with our very first poll. I want to understand, where are you in your transition journey? Where are you currently in your transition journey? So we're going to give some, a couple of seconds for everybody to vote. And when you're done, we'll take a look at it.
Yes.
So
When I end the poll, everyone will see the results.
yeah. All right. So I believe we are good now, right?
Yeah, we've got like 20 people
It's
voting
live and
already.
raw. Ah, nice. And it's non-scoring, please.
There's no wrong answers.
Exactly.
Okay, I just ended the poll.
Okay, fantastic. So, uh, um, where is it possible to see the poll results? Is it going to
I
pop up?
just shared the
Boom.
results. Everyone should have it now.
Fantastic. So, this is great. 35% of us are saying that we are confused about what career to transition into, which is, I mean, it's quite relieving. 60% of us have chosen a path, but you're not really sure about how to bridge your skills gap, which is also great because the five-step guide actually addresses each of these concerns. Then the last one is that I've built the needed skills, but I don't know how to sell myself for a role. I mean, to a role, which is also, I mean, we have an introductory part to that, and like there's a sweet package at the end about that particular step as well. So I'll just jump right in. And I mean, it may be that you have chosen a path, right? And you started building skills in that direction. But when you participate in this session, you might want to reconsider other paths as well. Because as a career coach, what I've mostly encountered is that a lot of people are not able to get the right information to make these decisions. So then this very first step, which is about discovering potential paths, it's really good because it gets to provide you with recommendations, right, based on your own personal inventory. So how do you accelerate your discovery? Mostly what I've seen is that a lot of people engage in a lot of trial and errors. I mean, I've been a victim myself. I did sales for 4 years. I wanted to branch into IT, but I wasn't sure. And you're constantly in that phase where you're like, well, what if I jump into this and it's not what I want, right? So then you become a bit hesitant and you're not sure about the step to take. Now, this accelerates your discovery step, basically helps you to move with a bit of certainty. And what does it look like? In order to make a decision about the career you'd want to jump into, there are so many inputs, right, that you can factor in. These are centered around your personality, your interest, your skills, and all of that. But particularly for this, we designed something, and I think Jess would share that with you at the end of the session. But there are levels to it. And the first level to it is that we want you to develop that level of self-awareness, right? So that's what the Holland Code Quiz is about. Basically, it's a very researched model, like it's been in existence since 1950. And there are 6 sections to it. So maybe when you Google, it will pop up either the Holland test or it will pop up the RIASEC inventory. So RIASEC. So we have, it's more like personality type, but for each individual, you would have a mix of 2 to 3 of these types. So there are people who are realistic, there are people who are investigative, there are people who are artistic. I mean, I can't draw to save my life, so I'm never artistic. Then there are people who are social, there are people who are enterprising, and then there are people who are conventional, right? There are people who don't want to work in spaces where the environment is constantly changing. So this you can discover this code of yours depending on a set of questions that you answer. So at the end of this session, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to go through that exercise, but we are going to be sharing that with you, and then you get to discover your Holland code or your RESEC code. Now, with that code, it will serve as an input to a couple of things, and we'll give you some form of like AI prompt to discover your path. So that's like the very first part of your personal inventory, right? And I would say that mostly people would tell you, hey, upload your resume into ChatGPT and then get career recommendations. The only bias with that is that the inputs at that point becomes just your skills, because the most important thing that you can reference from your resume is basically the skills, which will be tapped from your experience. So imagine if you are making a decision on a career path just based on your skills and not based on some other things like your personality and all of that. and even your interest. So then I come to the second part, which is like being able to reflect on your interest. So interests are things that, make you excited. I mean, you're happy to engage in, you're happy to read about, you're curious about, and all of that. Um, Being interested in tech is one thing, but there could be so many facets, right? For example, I like to talk to people. Like that's my interest. I like to talk to people. I love to engage people and then influence them to make a decision, not to manipulate them, but then influence them to make a decision that will be beneficial to them, right? So all these are like personal interests, that I have. So the second step of the process beyond the personality part is to also document your interests. And it takes a couple of, reflection to come up with that. You actually have to give yourself like 30 minutes, an hour, a week, wherever you want to, whatever timeline you want to give yourself. Just make sure you are reflecting and then discovering all those interests, right? So that's like the second step to it. Then the third step is performing a skills audit. Now, to perform a skills audit, it basically means taking an inventory of the skills that you have, right? So what skills do I have today? What skills have I built over the period? And it's very important that you don't consider just like your 9 to 5 work. You can consider experiences from church. You can consider experiences from student leadership days. You can consider so many experiences, right? And then think through how you've demonstrated certain skills, whether it's a soft skill, whether it's a technical skill, whether it's the use of a particular software, all of that comes under the skills bracket. So it's important to do this skills audit because based on that skills audit, it's more like mirroring the whole thing about uploading your resume. But imagine if there's an experience I didn't capture in your resume, right? Then if you upload your resume to ChatGPT, you miss out on that part of you. So it's important to like reflect as well and then perform the skills audit and document all these things. Now, when you have these key things like the Holland code, the interest, and then the skills audit, you can now put everything together and then run it through the special prompts that we built for you. And Jess will be sharing that at the end of the session to your mailboxes. And I mean, you'll be amazed by the kind of recommendations that it will give you. I did play it back to before I transitioned, filling that in, and it literally like predicted the pathways that I should go. And one of them was the product management pathway, which is what I'm doing now. So I'm very confident that is like very validated, and you would get to now focus on top 5 areas that you can start your discovery from, rather than thinking through, hey, I mean, what's in tech can I get into and all of that. That's like a very, very great way to accelerate the discovery. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is being able to evaluate your time to transition for each option. Mostly your interests as well as your competencies might be in conflict, right? And I would explain. When I wanted to transition into tech, one of the things that came up was data science. And data science looked interesting. I wanted to work in a role where I use data. But then I thought about the time that it would take me to build a skill, like learn how to code in Python, go through a lot of practice, and then eventually probably land an internship or apprenticeship, and then finally get a job. And I realized that that was going to take a long time. So I did a bit of reflection, and then I was like, yeah, I mean, I've done sales. I have wealth of experience. I have domain experience in healthcare. I've done career coaching. Like I have some experience. So why don't I tap into those skills and look at how I can synergize my previous experiences with the opportunities that exist. And then that helped me come to that resolve that I could shorten my transition time. Even with that, I took about a year to transition. Jessica transitioned faster into product marketing management. And then I transitioned, I transitioned after a whole year, right? But by being conscious of this, why it's important is that there are sections to, if you want to evaluate your time to transition, that's how I call it. You have to think through the time it will take you to upskill, right? Which is also dependent on the experiences that you have now. Because if you have the competencies, then it means that you have less gaps between where you are now and then the role that you want to get into. So it will take you a shorter time to upskill, whether you're taking courses and whatnot. It will take you a shorter time to practice because you're familiar with the skills. and then the regular job hunting timeline would also be added on. So all in all, like it's very important to think through this in the process of doing your choices. Because I'm not saying that don't go for a longer timeline. What I'm saying is that it's very important to stay aware of that timeline so that if you see other people transitioning, you don't get bothered and then you don't feel like you're not putting in the work. Because it's like transitioning can get lonely, it can get long, but then if you stay consistent and you have a lot of clarity, the journey becomes super easy. So in terms of discovering potential paths, this is the hack to take. And we'll move on to the next step. So lag on my end. So next poll. Yeah. So we have our next poll up, which is so you want to get clarity about a particular career path. You're done with your discovery, you got 5 jobs, you now want to dig deeper, right? To understand what the role really is. And we are saying that, okay, go read the job descriptions of these roles so that you have a clearer picture of it. The question I want to ask is, there are sections of a job description, right? There's about the company section, there's job overview, there's roles and responsibilities, there's skills and qualifications. Which will you pay more attention to? And I want you to choose the top 2. Don't choose more than 2. Don't choose less than 2. I want you to choose the top 2.
Okay, we have 10 responses. We are going to 20 and then we'll end the poll.
Yeah, please vote fast, 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 fast.
Wow, people are voting very fast now.
So the very first step addresses the 35% of people who are not sure about their career. I mean, which path should I take and all of that. Even if you're part of the 65%, I mean, it's very important that you maybe do some reevaluation to know that you're on the right path. Okay, great. So 27% saying about the company, 32% job overview, 77% the roles and responsibilities, and then 55% skills and qualifications. And I'm excited that the parts that you have to be paying a lot of attention to, which is the C and the D, is what is reigning, which is the roles and responsibilities and the skills and qualifications. And it's very important because these would give you like a preview, right? It's like a trailer to the whole job that or the whole career path that you're trying to get into. And by reviewing the roles and responsibilities and then the skills and qualifications, you would also be able to assess, your job gaps, I mean your skill gaps, right? And that can influence your upskilling strategy or your upskilling direction. So yes, you start by reading job description. And I had a conversation earlier, it was last week with Andrea, and she's a very good scenario where she says it's like you're building a house, right? And then the foundation is being able to read the job description. Now, after reading the job description, you go out there to talk to real people who are in those roles. And the thing is, we are in a very should I say chaotic world, right? There's a lot of things happening. And so for people to prioritize you and sort of dedicate their time to you, you would have to show them that you've done a bit of homework. And one of the very, very easiest, lowest hanging fruit, I'm not even saying low hanging fruit, the lowest hanging fruits techniques to use is just reading the job description to really understand what the role entails. So that at the point of getting in touch with people, with industry professionals, it's very easy to engage them, right? So we call something informational interviews. And what it basically means is that you're having interviews with industry professionals and you're getting information from them. It's nothing fancy. It's just like a term that's used in the industry. So informational interviews, you have to conduct a lot of them. And it's a way to validate the information that you've read about the role online, the information that you've read through job descriptions. It's a perfect time to ask professionals that, hey, I mean, I'm trying to transition into product management. I read that, I mean, you should know how to use Jira. I've downloaded Jira. I've used that for project management, blah, blah, blah. I want you to tell me if there are any resources, any peculiar resources that you think I should pay attention to that can help me upskill in Jira faster. When someone who is in a role get such a request, they take you more seriously because they feel like, okay, this person has dedicated extra time to wanting to transition. And it sort of forces their hand to want to help you because people want to be part of other people's successes. But then they don't want to take on the burden of having to be the one leading you to the success. So, and all, through the informational interviews, you'll be able to get access to free learning resources as well as communities, right? So it opens the door for you. And then by doing that, the next thing would be to take the advice that you're getting from those calls and try and implement those advice, like put it to use. Even if you're going to implement just a single one, put it to use and then provide feedback. It's a way of building relationships. So a lot of people would have these informational interviews. After the calls, they drop the ball. And the thing is, in this whole transition process, referrals are very important, right? People may not refer you to the companies that you're working in, but then the fact that you are constantly updating them, you're upskilling, you're giving them feedback and all of that, they will be able to recommend you, even if their friends, their colleagues, their ex-colleagues in other companies are sort of hiring. So it's like a very great way to build relationship, being able to provide those feedback and then leveraging those relationships and feedback systems to secure referrals. Then lastly, you can also share progress on your transition journey, right? So even beyond the advice they're giving you, whatever strides you're making, hey, you got an interview slot, give that update. And I'll share like a short personal encounter. In 2021, when I was trying to transition into product management, I met Charles Wattenberg. He was in Microsoft by then. I cold messaged him on LinkedIn. He didn't respond. I cold messaged him on Twitter. He responded and we brought a conversation back to LinkedIn. And I had the chance to engage him from 2021. 2 years later, I had a case study, right, for my current role. And after thinking through the case study, I reached out to him and his feedback was very instrumental because I was thinking on a very tactical level. Because he's a product leader, has experience, he was thinking on a very strategic level. And guess what? The things that I suggested in that deck when I was doing my presentation are the project that I'm currently working on now in the company. So like these are like some of the ways. It doesn't just end at referrals. It doesn't end at the informational interviews. There's so much more that could happen. Like when you are going through the recruitment process, there's the take-home assignment part. There's a part where you have to prep for interviews, and being able to leverage these relationships is very key. Remember, I built my relationship and maintained it for 2 good years before I finally even drew from that relationship. So that's like a very good way to look at it. So there's a way to get clarity on your chosen path and then the skills that you need to build. So for example, the 65% that said, I've chosen a path, but I'm not sure. I'm feeling like a sorcerer now, right? Because it's like, hey, getting the gist. So this particular step would help you the most. Like conduct so many informational interviews to the point where you're hearing the same thing, then you know that okay, you reached that saturation, and then you need to move on to, putting in work and practicing. So we can move to the third step. Jessica, how am I doing on time? I think I'm talking too much. I think you're mute, Jess.
Oh, you're doing okay. We have about 10 more minutes to go and you're already halfway. So let's go.
Okay, okay,
I'm going
okay.
to set this poll live for the third poll, and then we can have it. Poll number 3, launch.
Okay, so poll number 3. There are 3 ways to upskill, right? You can upskill through practice. You can upskill through mentorships. That's like the experience of other people. And then you can upskill through formal learning, like taking a course or taking a master's program. So which of them do you think deserves the highest percentage of focus? It starts now. Again, not scoring. Right, 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 right.
Yeah. Now the responses are coming even quicker. By the time I blink, it's already at 20. So
Wow,
I'm gonna wait till 25 and then I'll end the poll there.
super.
Okay, I'm going to end poll now. Get your last responses in. Awesome.
Fast, fast. Okay. Nice. Hey, flash sharp like see. Anyway, so practice is winning, followed by mentorship. So 78% for practice, 13% for mentorship, and then 9% for formal learning. And I would say yes. Moving on to the next slide, there's the 70-20-10 rule of building a skill. Again, a lot of people that I've seen end up at the 10, right? Some also do a bit of the 70, and then most people leave out the 20. So the 70% is the practice, right? The 20% is the mentorship, the 10% is the formal learning. And you would almost always start with the formal learning. But even so, it's more like convoluted, right? We spoke about informational interviews. And instead of just going into the world and taking any course at all, reach out to professionals who can direct you and say, hey, go here because like I've used these resources before. I know it's beneficial for people who are starting out in this area. So you'd want to leverage those relationships to even choose the 10, which is like the courses that you need to learn, the e-learning courses, or even like the boot camps that you need to participate in. Now, that is like the very, very beginning. Then the other bit is like the mentorship. So why mentorships are important is that there are always people who are ahead. There are always people who have committed mistakes, and you wouldn't want to commit those same mistakes. Like it's better to commit new mistakes so that you can also pass it on to others as new knowledge. So I always fight with people that if you're not doing informational interviews, if you're not talking to people, if you're not um, finding information from people who are ahead of you, then you might be missing a particular part of the learning process. One major thing, though, that I want to hint about is don't ask people to be your mentor. And I have like, I have, I have a video on that. I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but just don't ask people to be your mentor. Just keep it going. Like if you want an informational interview, ask for it, provide feedback, let it form, right? The moment you ask them to be your mentor, it now becomes okay, I'm responsible for you. It puts this responsibility on them, and then the relationship might get strained. So you find more of that on my Instagram, on my LinkedIn. You're gonna find like details on, but the key thing is that you please mentor me. I want you to mentor. Just go ahead and ask the stuff that you want, right? And then make sure that you're asking their interest, and then you're able to like get them to help you. So one other thing that you can look at in terms of the whole learning process, the 70-20-10 learning process framework, is also to find opportunities to put the knowledge to practice. So I mentioned that the 70% is where you do the actual work. And that's where the learning happens because you realize that all the stuff that you've learned from the courses, the moment you start applying them, you start making the mistakes, you start getting the insights. And that's where the real learning comes from, right? So what does that mean? It means like finding other people. Let's say you are doing product marketing, you know other people who are doing software development and maybe product management or data analysis. You can be the product marketer on their project, right? So that you can have like
Yeah.
real practical example of what product marketing is. And as I mentioned, it's convoluted. So whilst you are putting these things to practice, when you are hitting a block, you are going back to the people that you've built relationships with, and you're asking them, hey, like I had this block, I was trying to work around things this way. Are you able to like assist with how I should go about this? So by going through that whole feedback loop, practicing, failing, learning, it helps to toughen your skill muscle. And then you're able to like accelerate the whole transition process. So 70-20-10 is like really, it's not like it's segmented, right? Like it's not fragmented. It's always like working hand in hand. And in terms of building the practical skills, as I mentioned, volunteering in communities, you can easily find communities. I think Jessica is very good at finding communities where the communities are hiding. She'll pull it out for you. And being able to work on open source projects. And there are a lot of open source communities online, especially on Twitter. You can just search for open source communities. You're going to see a lot of them. And then you can see how you can contribute to them by looking at the people who are leading these communities. that's a very great way to start. And open source communities are always like looking for people to like support their projects, right? Because it's like open source. So that becomes like a very great opportunity to build a real life skill. And then also there's also the bit about being able to pitch yourself to companies. So you find that small businesses, they're under-resourced. They may not have the funding. Um, you also need a learning opportunity. And your way of getting your foot in the door is like also dedicating your time. So I would say that it's an opportunity to like experiment and put all the stuff that you're learning to use, right? And one thing my mentor told me way back from 2016 was that when you are volunteering your time, you determine what hours to work because you're not getting paid. So that level of flexibility also exists. And it becomes important to like leverage that to also build like very, very practical skills. So the part about upskilling, bridging your skills gap, this is it. And so for those who, I mean, have chosen a path and, you know, they are thinking about how do I bridge my skills gap? This is like part two of the process. I think we can move to the very fourth step.
Perfect. I'm just going to start the poll as well. This is the last poll. The final one is not going to be like a selection. So get your answers in now. Let's go. Let's go. Let's
Great.
go. I can
So
see.
nice. So you're building your resume, right? And you have to think about experiences to include in your resume. Which of these would you consider relevant to include in your resume? You can select as many that apply. You're not limited to any number. So which of these would you consider as relevant, right, to include in your resume? Okay,
We're at
keep
19,
voting.
20. Oh, amazing. Everyone is voting this time around. Let's go. Joel, it seems like this question is the easiest question. So next time, please give us easier questions.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Awesome. I'm going to end the poll now so we can see the results.
Oh, right. Great, great, great. So we had votes on all of them, which is great. The highest is leadership experience. That's shocking, but that's interesting as well. We also have like paid work, unpaid work, freelance work. That is fantastic. So here's the thing. After you're done with the whole skill building, not really after, right? Because it's running in parallel. So you're documenting stuff. You're also like building the skill. You're learning. You're documenting stuff. So at the point where you've gotten to, you know, I've built enough skill. I think I can even run a project. I've run a couple of projects. I've put my skill to use. Then you have to start looking at, okay, how do I reimagine my previous experience to help me sell my competencies and my skills for the opportunity or the career path that I'm trying to transition into. And I've seen lots of people transition into tech and they only focus on the 9 to 5, the paid work. But from today, I would like you to see skill building as any activity that you've participated in where you had to use your competencies. It doesn't matter if it's paid, doesn't matter if it's unpaid, if it's volunteering, whether it's informal, formal, all of that. Like, it's very important to bring all of this together. And I've lived this, right? When I was transitioning into product management, I had to rethink all the stuff that I'd done, starting with Career Wheel. We started with a link tree, and when you click on the link tree, it routes you to a Google Doc, and it tells you what the package is about, whether it's a resume service, what not, and it tells you to buy the package through mobile money. It was quite broken, but it felt like, okay, this is like something that would keep us going. Now, 2 years, 3 years later, I go into product and I discover that, oh, the name of this thing is called prototyping, right? Having a prototype or having an MVP. And all these things are like packed in the job description, but till you read a job description and break it down, you never really get it. So now I had to reimagine all the stuff that I'd done because we moved from having a link tree. That was like a very good place for us to start from. So having a full-blown website that now allows you to pay with card, pay with mobile money integrations without us having to interfere, and then an automated onboarding process. So all of these things came up as I was doing this as like an entrepreneur. I was doing my master's program, winging this on the side, but it was actually some elements of product management that I never knew about. So now I had to go back, think through these experiences, and now rewrite them into resume bullets. And so imagine that I took out the entrepreneurship and I was like, okay, I'm just going to focus on my 9 to 5. First of all, I'll tell myself, oh, I have a huge skills gap, right, during my master's program, or a huge experience gap during my master's program. But that wasn't the case. Like, I was working crazy hours on my business when I was doing my master's, right? So that tells you that you don't need to leave out any experiences. So if you've been part of a group on campus, whether you're part of, for the students who are on, you're part of ISEC, you're part of ECHO, all those Rotaracts and all of that, or you are even volunteering, like Jess can have no code techies on a resume. And then if she wanted to represent something around event management, this event passes to be like an event experience, because you have no idea the kind of troubles she went through, like in the background, right? Trying to put all these logistics together with Dockers. So like all of these are important. You don't need to leave anything out. And then also the volunteering experience that you get yourself into, like in the process of upskilling, it's also important to include that in your resume building exercise. So I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but it's just about the concept of being able to sell yourself and all of that. Like we have able people who would be able to like take you into the depths of resume writing and LinkedIn building. The other thing that I also want to highlight is domain knowledge. So domain knowledge, transferable skills, and technical skills. So let me tell you one thing. When I got into my company, I was curious. I was like, hey, I really got into this company, into a senior product manager role. You know what? Let me just try and go on my boss's calendar, right? And look at all the people that interviewed with my boss, because they will be sitting on my boss's calendar. So I went back, I joined in March, but then I went back to January and then started playing it back. And then I checked out the profile of all the people. I realized that none of them were pharmacists, right? I was the only pharmacist. You understand? And at that point, I was like, oh, that was actually my mojo. That's the thing that made me stand out, apart from the knowledge in product and all of that. And imagine that when I was transitioning, I decided to choose like fintech. Meanwhile, I don't have any banking and finance background. That would have lengthened my time to transition, right? Because then the domain knowledge is important. So what I'm trying to highlight is that make sure you are making good use of your domain knowledge. So if you're a teacher, if you're working in banking, if you're working in transport, maybe the industries that you want to start targeting are industries in those areas, so that you're able to bank on your domain knowledge, right, to get your foot in the door faster. It doesn't mean that you can't tackle other industries. It only means that other industries might take a longer time because you need to build like some form of domain knowledge in those areas. So domain knowledge also works. Transferable skills, it doesn't always have to be the exact technical skills, but transferable skills like the collaboration, the negotiation, the research, all of those things, like so far as it maps onto the job, please, you need to include it. Otherwise, you'll be selling yourself short. So it's important to incorporate all your past experiences. Then the last thing I'll talk about will be being able to mirror the job description keywords in your experience. So you've read these job descriptions, you've done your informational interviews, you know what skills you are bridging. These job description keywords are top of mind for you. Normally, people do not understand what keywords are, but they are basically things around your skills, competencies, frameworks, terminologies, technologies, tools, all of that that is used in a particular role or domain, right? So these terms are being used in the job description, and you're asking yourself, okay, how do I incorporate that or mirror that in my experience? So I have a typical example here. The job description is saying key stakeholders, right? Your job as a teacher requires that you engage parents. Stakeholders are basically people that you work with. Either they impact your work or you impact their work, right? So whether you're working with them directly or indirectly, they still fit in as stakeholders. So in this case, if you're a teacher and you're building your resume and you have come across the word stakeholders, anything in your resume, your current resume now that says parents, 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 you have to change that to stakeholders, stakeholders, stakeholders. Right. So that's just like an example of being able to mirror keywords and looking at it creatively, right? So that you can easily sell yourself based on your previous experiences. And I think we are at the very last step, which is, I mean, we do have a poll. So yes, apart from job search, what other benefits can be drawn from LinkedIn? Just I think this might take a lot of time because people are going to type. So if we do have time, yes, we can wait for the answers. Other than that, we can skip and jump right in. So I'd like to call the shot on that.
Yeah, I think people should just keep writing, but we'll move on to the final slide, and also give you like a 3-minute marker warning.
Okay, great, 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 great. So networking, I've seen networking in the slide, visibility, personal branding, thought
Thought
leadership.
leadership,
Fantastic.
amazing.
Great, great, great. So all of that is important, right? A lot of people would think that LinkedIn is just for job application. I've come across a lot of people saying that, but also the relationship building. The first place that you should find people is LinkedIn. Like literally where they work, their roles are on LinkedIn. You just have to put that in the chat section. Sorry, not in the chat section, in the search box, and then you can easily find them on LinkedIn, right? So I would say that that's important. Another bit about it is building a brand. You don't need to be a thought leader to post on LinkedIn. You can share your journey. I had a hashtag from pharmacy to product. You can check that. It was talking about like the stuff that I'm learning. I just kept dumping it in. So anything that I learn, I just sort of post it on LinkedIn just for that visibility. And I remember one time my mom actually posted hashtag from pharmacy to product on Facebook as a way to support me. And that felt like really good. But it's a way to share your story. And again, you don't necessarily have to share your learning journey, but if you're able to share that, it gives visibility. People have you as top of mind. And when opportunities come, that's how it works. Like mass marketing, the moment opportunities come, they're like, oh, okay, this person is like an entry-level person. I've seen them post something before. Let me just recommend them for this particular opportunity. So that works. And it also helps to soften the ground to connect with industry professionals. Because if you are active, what people check is that apart from your profile picture and then your job title, they go to your profile to see the activity. And then if they believe that you're ready to join their network, they accept your connection. So that's also a way to like upskill your networking, and then the whole informational interview referral bit. So being able to attract opportunities to you, I call it mass marketing. LinkedIn is one of the strategies to use. And I believe that again, there's going to be a deep dive session on that Jess will be announcing at the end of the call. So basically, this my 5-step process. First one is being able to the potential pathways. The second one is what's the second one, Jess? Reading the job descriptions and yeah, getting clarity, the informational interviews and all of that. The third one is being able to build the skills gap. The fourth one is being able to now reimagine your previous experiences. And then the fifth one is being able to attract more opportunities through mass marketing. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to me rant for the past 30 minutes.
Thank you so much. Let's show some reactions to Joel, some emojis. Let's show him that we appreciate. Thank you so much, Joel. That was amazing, by the way. I learned so much. At this point, I think it's a good time to take a bit of a break. Interact with people in the chat. I want to recommend that people can put your LinkedIn in the chat so that people can, be doing some following while we have this 5-minute break. You can get up and get like a cup, a glass of water, like tea, a drink, just make use of the next 5 minutes to just like take a breather. But while we're doing it, I have 16 questions already in the Q&A. So I'm going to just ask a few of them so that we can actually get them out of the way, because I think by the Q&A time, we might not be able to finish everything. So this question has two upvotes, and I think it's a very important question. So let me put it to the panel. Do I necessarily have to resign from my current job to be able to fully transition? I'm going to come back to you, Joel, because I know that we just had a conversation on transitioning and how to share transferable skills and stuff. So I'll take a response from you for that and a response from Andrea for that as well. So, Andrea, you have some time to prepare your answer, but Joel, let's go. Remember to unmute before you speak. Okay, while we wait for Joel, Andrea, can you
Oh,
hear the
you're
question?
waiting for me. I thought Andrea.
Oh, so I was saying that I'm going to take answers from both of you, but you go first and then Andrea can go.
Okay, so I'm having a top block on the question. Hit it again.
Oh, no worries. Do I necessarily have to resign from my current job to be able to fully transition? Someone is asking this in the question, and three people resonate, so they've upvoted it.
Okay, sure. Some of us did resign from our jobs, Jessica and I. But again, when we were resigning from the job, we chose a path that will still feed us. So we chose to go for a scholarship so that we don't go broke, right? So that was like the strategy that we used. And it depends on a lot of factors, right? If you want to transition faster and you have a higher risk appetite, then you would want to like get off the job, use like more like go through that stress state of building the skill and then transitioning. Also, you can couple it with your job. That would mean that you're putting in extra 2 hours a day to like sort of upskill or do whatever practice that you need to do. So that like it's really dependent on what you want to do. And if you really want to call it quits and still make money, then you can explore the scholarship pathway because then you are being paid to study and then you are still, upskilling yourself to transition. So that's what I'll say from my end. But Andrea, I'm sure Andrea has like a lot of gems to add.
Yeah, so I'm happy to add to that. I think the answer is based on what you're currently doing. If you're in a role that's really demanding, I probably wouldn't recommend, I don't know, side hustles. I don't know. It's a really difficult thing to say. But freelancing is really a great opportunity. You can determine your workload, you decide what you want to take on. So yes, take a step back and see what is it that you're currently doing and how much can you add to that. So no, you don't necessarily have to quit. Just determine where you are and where you want to go.
Amazing. I think it like most things in the world, it really depends. It depends on where you are right now. It depends on what savings you have or what support you have if you're not if you're going to call it quits. Like if for instance your family really is supportive and they can actually, take care of you in the gap while you're trying to make the transition, that's a great way to go. You can also always take the formal education path that Joel and I took because, you know, from 8 to 5 you're doing your schoolwork, and then from 9 till midnight you're looking at jobs and like applying for things, and so that can work because getting into like uni is not as demanding. But if you're doing a full-time job, like Andrea said, not everyone can do a 9 to 5 and a 5 to 9. So you need to really figure out what support you have and what you can give up for that period. Joel, you have 30 seconds
Yeah.
and then I'm going to move to the next question.
So one thing I think I kind of missed out is you can also look within the organization that you're in and volunteer your skills in other teams. I think I completely forgot that, but that's also a very great way to transition, and you don't have to go doing the job hunting and all of that. So that's also like one of the things that you
Nice.
can completely.
Okay, so I was going to ask one more question, but we're already at the top of the hour, so I would bring us back in the room. Um, Joe, can you lower your hand because it's making me feel like I'm bullying you and I'm not calling you to speak, but you've already spoken. Awesome. That was just by the way. Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone is feeling a bit refreshed. Also, our number has grown. Woohoo! We started with about 47 people. We're currently at 55. So keep joining and ask your friends to join if they haven't yet joined because there's still two more sessions to go. But on that note, we are going to move into our very next session, which I'm really excited about because it's directly linked to the fifth step the fourth and fifth steps that Joel talked about, which is one, making sure you're able to package your skills and be able to share it, but also to mass market yourself, right, on LinkedIn and on social media. And so, without further ado, I know we can't do drum roll, but can you show some emojis so I know that everyone is awake and here with us? Like I can do my own air drum rolls, but we're going to have our two panelists who are lovely career experts to have a panel discussion that I will be moderating. So, um, is Mary Esther on here? Yes, she is. Okay, perfect. Without further ado, I'm gonna give you the chance to introduce yourself, starting with Mary Esther. Please tell us a bit about yourself and what we are expecting for this session. And then once you're done, Andrea, just go right after.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Maria Stanley, and I'm currently based here in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm a final year law student and also the founder of Inclusive Remote, which is a remote job resource site dedicated to ensuring that everyone everywhere, both tech and especially non-tech, get the best of remote opportunities. Aside from that, I'm a career specialist. I'm into executive coaching, remote job coaching, resume revamp, LinkedIn optimization. And yeah, I think my career forte, I would say my career mission is to ensure that I get about more hundreds of Africans into the remote workspace.
Awesome. You go, Andrea.
Love that. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea, born and bred in South Africa. I currently live in a small coastal town just outside of Cape Town. I started out as an internal recruiter and career coach, and now I work on a freelance basis, still in the tech space, helping small to medium-sized businesses with employer branding and recruitment. I'm hoping to bring you some insights today on what it looks like on the inside of recruitment, and really hoping that I can help you navigate this difficult job market at the moment and really give you some gold nuggets to help you.
Amazing. I have no doubts that that's exactly what's going to happen in this panel. So, in this panel, like landing your dream job, we're going to dive into Andrea's recruiter bag of tips and best practices, and we're going to dive into Mary Esther's experience with personal and professional branding tips, as well as where to find no-code roles. Because, as you know, this is exactly the domain expertise that they bring to the table. So, I'm going to start with a question that is for both of you, right? In your professional opinions, how can non-coders identify but also actually seize the opportunity out there for them in the tech space? Anyone who wants to unmic first can do it. Okay, I'm going to choose Andrea.
I was about to say not everyone at the same time. So I think it's really important to get clear on what you're looking for, because that's the starting point for finding opportunities. And the way of seizing the opportunity is basically just do everything you can to convince the stakeholders of the process that you're the best fit for the role. And some ideas around that is really creating easy to write resumes, the ability to demonstrate your skills throughout the process, making it easy for them to really evaluate your skills and capabilities. And then something crucial that Joel mentioned earlier that I just want to reiterate again, because it is so important, is adding the personal touch. Really make sure that you stand out for being yourself.
Amazing. So making sure your resumes are easy to read, making sure you're very authentic, and you add your own personal spice. Thank you very much, Andrea. And to you, Mary Esther, how do we identify and seize the day?
Thank you. So I just add to what Andrea said. I think the first step is need to explore about using your transferable skills to transition, which is a kind of very ideal step, because as a non-tech, trying to transition into tech space, you need to identify what are the roles out there that I can identify to, that I can transition to. And there are lots of non-tech roles in tech space. Like there's the technical writing for writers out there. There is the marketing, tech marketing for the marketers and growth specialists out there. Then also another thing is networking and community, because there's one thing I'm very big on is like people around you. And I think something that Lai said, is a comedian, was like, the circle of your friends having to comfort of earth to you, which in career world is like a transition to be like this circle of people you surround yourself with, determines information that you're going to get as well. So community networking is very important. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you have inquiries about what are the opportunities out there, ask questions as well. And that thing again is skill enhancement. So when you're trying to transition, you need to upskill. There are lots of new technologies, new tools, latest industry knowledge. You need to ensure that you are up to date on those kind of things.
Great. And I just wanted to add to that, like a very easy way that Joel also mentioned is to try and find communities. When I was trying to make my own transition, to be honest, when I started out, I didn't know I wanted to do product marketing. And Joel can bear witness to this. I applied for like so many different things, like growth manager, some like different roles. And then I found the Product Marketing Alliance online. And honestly, my whole life changed because I got into like informational conversations with other product marketers. I got free knowledge from the communities. Like who you surround yourself with is so important, and also like the steps that you take, obviously, because we can tell you everything, but if you're not making the actual steps there, it's really hard. That's really great. Thank you so much for those responses. um so now this question goes directly to Andrea. Can you give us a brief description, right, of what exactly happens on the other side of a recruitment process? So like most of us here are candidates. We've applied to something before. You've received our applications. What happens when I send in my application? What happens on that side? Why do I get selected or why do I not get selected?
Yeah, so I think the most important part is just to take a little bit of a step back. From a business perspective, there are big risks to hiring, especially if you get it wrong. So the recruitment process really allows us to make an informed decision, which is one of the reasons why processes differ from one company to another. There are several steps. We have talent sourcing. This is obviously where you fill your pipeline with quality candidates. Recruiters find candidates in all sorts of places: job boards, social media, online platforms, and communities, as Joel also mentioned earlier. And then from referrals, the resume screening part. I think it's important to note that recruiters work on multiple roles at the same time. So when we have an easy to read resume, it's really easy for us to make the decision whether or not we're moving forward with someone in the process. In terms of interviews, there are so many different types of interviews: phone screen, technical, behavior, situational, and some processes have multiple interviewing rounds with different stakeholders. You also have the assessments that form part of the process: personality, skills, psychometric, behavioral assessments. I think there's a little bit of an uptick in the use of skills assessments, which is really good for candidates because they can really use those to stand out. And then in terms of other assessments, you have your reference checks, perhaps a criminal checks. And there I would say transparency is really key. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does, and I have some follow up that I will ask in the next two questions, but I want us to delve into that a little bit more.
Okay.
But I'm really glad that we talked about this application process and the point of like putting in your application, because if we take a step back, we can come to Mary and have this question around: where are these jobs? Like, where am I going to find the jobs to actually put in my application before it even gets onto like Andrea's desk? This is a very big question that I keep hearing from many people. So, like, give us the tea, give us the tips and tricks.
Okay, that's a very, very good one. Thank you so much, Jess. So I'm going to give you like, 7 tips rather, 7 juicy on how to get these opportunities. So the first one is using specialized job boards. And like I mentioned before, there's Inclusively Remote, which is directly dedicated to ensuring that the opportunities are applicable to Africans. Then there is networking as well. I think I cannot overemphasize networking because when you go to all these seminars or webinars, there's some people who are recruiters, who are founders, who are hiring. I might just, mention that, oh, I'm hiring, reach out to me by email, reach out to me on my LinkedIn profile, DM me. These are ways you can also submit your application. Then there is company website. So when I was starting out with remote work and as someone who has experienced a lot of rejections, I call it bars, bows, left and right. What really changed for me was identifying myself with the right remote first and people first companies. What I mean by people first and remote companies, fully remote, is that most remote companies are not fully remote, like in all regions, but there are remote companies that are fully remote, and then there are people first with like a lot of benefits and perks. Even if you are in Africa, you're in Nigeria, you're in Kenya, you're in Zimbabwe, they have lots of opportunities and perks and benefits for you as well. So follow this company website. I can give like a few. Deal is a company that hire Africans. There's Deal, there's Remote, there's cheaper, no, there's Pipa, then there is Status, there is Buffer, there is Test Gorilla. So there are lots of remote companies. You can find them out like in the job board, inclusiveremote.com. We have like a lot of remote companies like in our dashboard. There are another step that you can use is freelance platform. So I think we're all familiar with Upwork, we're familiar with like freelancer. These are where you can also submit your application. Then we also have like remote work events and conferences. So, webinars like this, webinars like, teaching about remote work. You can also find people, like I mentioned before, that are hiring, founders that are looking for, amazing global talent. Then another thing is connecting with remote work agency and recruiters. So LinkedIn, like one of my best social media out there, is one of the ways you can also connect with these recruiters. There are lots of recruiters out there. No, sorry, on LinkedIn that are hiring, constantly looking for global talent. And also another juicy tea is that this season is like the hiring, poaching season. So it's an opportunity for you to get your profile out there looking neat and looking outstanding so that these recruiters can come to you and poach you for opportunities. Then another and the last one is skill-based platform. So I think there are a lot of skill-based platforms that provide expertise where to provide dashboard or platform where you can actually put in your expertise. I think, and one I would recommend is Well Found, which is like Angel List before. So it's a LinkedIn. It's like a kind of LinkedIn kind of platform where you can build your profile, offer your expertise, as well as apply for jobs. So when you see a job, you just send in a short cover letter and then they reach out to you. So these are like platforms where you can submit your application and get those opportunities.
Amazing. That is so good. I like the fact that you also called out actual companies that are hiring that people can actually like right now go and Google and check out. But definitely team, like I've gone on inclusively remote to and all the jobs there, at the very least, that they will hire from Africa, because like Mary said, not every remote is remote. Some remotes are like remote US, remote UK, but there's some remote companies that are remote worldwide, like Deal, Tesgarella, Remote, Oyster, like so many companies fit that bill. And of course, that's a really good place to start. But now let's come back to you, Andrea. So we talked about the application process, and of course, there's a big debate out there that sometimes the applicant tracking system disqualifies people before it even gets to recruiters. And so there's so many people out there that are trying to teach people how to game like the ATS platforms, and is this true? Is it really like, are we getting kicked out of ATSs automatically because our CVs don't look nice? Or what is the situation there?
Yeah, so That's a good question. And I've seen so many LinkedIn posts talking about this recently. I think the confusion comes in perhaps with the questions that's related to the application. So, when you click on the careers page and you go onto the job advert, you upload your application and they have questions. Some of those have triggers to automatically reject. And I think that's why people think it's linked to the keywords on your resume, which is not the truth. It's still, once they pass that process, someone still sits there manually reviewing all those resumes. That's a human, that's not AI. But you know what? I think resumes right now, they are as important as first impressions. You have a couple of minutes to convince the reader to take a closer look. But what you do after this is the difficult part, because that is where you have to give context to the claims and statements that you made on your resume.
That it's good to know that there's not some evil hand somewhere just like picking our resumes by the dozen and then dumping them in the trash. But obviously the idea here is that sometimes the question that you see on the ATS system, it might be a very crucial one for the company, and maybe that specific answer, if it's a yes or no, triggers a rejection. And that just simply means that this company is not the one. It's not because the recruiter is being like flippant with the application or anything like that. Sometimes they just really want some specific or critical skill that you probably do not have, or experience that you probably do not have. So yes, the ATS is not our enemy. But again, on resumes, you did mention that resumes are now as important as a first impression, right? And so is there any one or two tips that you probably have for making a resume punchy, like making sure that the resume stands out or catches the recruiter's eye?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing at the moment, especially if you're going to be applying remotely, remove anything that could lead to biases, date of birth, marital status. I wouldn't even recommend putting a photo on. If they really want to see what you look like, they can see you when you're interviewing or when they look at your LinkedIn when you connect with them. Address, steer clear of religion and political views on your resume. But I think in terms of making it punchy, an easy to read resume is really something that has clear, concise examples of your skill set, and then mimicking keywords and language from the job advert. When a recruiter reviews your resume, they're going to look for terms that they know. And it just makes it a little bit quicker because they pick up on it when they review everything. Mention your accomplishments. And then a big one is proofreading. Ensure that you have the correct information and that it's error-free. I cannot tell you how many candidates I would like to contact that doesn't have an email address or contact information, incorrect contact information. So, back to basics.
That is so good. I really like that. On making sure that your resume is readable. I read something on LinkedIn this week about how something as simple as using bullet points in your resume can be so good because it tells people, okay, this is a new point. That's a very good thing. And like the second thing that I want to talk about now that I've had some experience in the hiring thing from like a company is that recruiters are working with so many hiring managers at the same time in their internal company. So remember, the head of product wants to hire a product manager. The head of marketing is hiring a growth marketer. The head of sales, head of engineering, everyone is hiring somebody. And these recruiters are not product managers. So they've read the JD that the head of product gave them, which means that that is the context with which they are judging your resume. And so if you're not using the keywords that are on that JD, and this person now has to go and Google and see if what you're saying is similar to what is on the JD, that already is giving them more friction. And you know that more friction means you don't get a buyer. I mean, this is a sales thing that I know from sales, but basically, imagine if you wanted to buy Instagram and for you to pay for like Instagram, you needed to sit in like a 15-minute call or go and Google something before you can hit click. That friction alone can make you not buy it. It's the same thing for recruiters. Your selling skills, their buying skills, show them that the skills are what they're looking for, so that they can basically move you through the process, because recruiters really want you to get the job. Honestly, they want this job to be filled as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for that. I think that's really, really great. Now, under Mary Esther, I want to come to you about LinkedIn profiles. Joel has mentioned mass marketing is important. Andrea has mentioned, if I want to see more about you, I will go to your LinkedIn. It means that LinkedIn is very important. It's run through this conversation. How, first of all, why is it so important that we make sure that we're online and creating some kind of presence? But also, what are some good steps to make sure that our LinkedIn is looking hireable?
Thank you so much for that. Yes. So there's something I always say or tell people is that LinkedIn is like your digital resume to the world. So it's like what tells people about you globally. And one thing about LinkedIn is that LinkedIn has the potential to reach people that you won't even meet physically. So which is why it's very, very important to have like a good emphasis on good LinkedIn profile. And this also serve as your personal branding and everything. So the question is, how would you build a LinkedIn profile that attracts opportunities, right? So I'm going to give like detailed steps like how to do that. The first thing you need to understand is create a LinkedIn profile. Use like your name that's also in your resume as well, and also have like a good professional picture. Which this I cannot like overemphasize. Most people come on LinkedIn, their headshots is probably ones on Snapchat on filters. No, it's good, but you look very cute, but it's not professional, and you don't want to like give someone another impression of you. So ensure that your headshot, your profile picture is very, very professional or semi-professional. Then your headline is very, very important. So your headline serve as a kind of um it's called some kind of a search tool, where if recruiters are searching for probably product managers or probably technical writer, those are the things that will show up. So ensure that your headline is the first words is probably what you're looking for. For example, if you're transitioning to product management, you can say, okay, product management, then data analysis, then probably any other things that you do, and then probably what you have done, like kind of achievement. For example, how I did mine was I called myself, career people and remote work, then career specialist, then stroke helped over 20 plus 50 plus people get remote opportunities. Now these are figures, right? Then next was advocate for SDG 8. So now I have described myself, I've given a glimpse of what I can do, my achievements and my impact as well. Now go on that to your about section. So people think about section is just, okay, let me just copy my resume profile summary into my about section. But about section puts in a personalized side of you, meaning that it tells a story. Who are you on LinkedIn? Then who are you outside LinkedIn as well? So let that about section tell your story. You can even use that as a means of saying, oh, I came from a sales background, but now I'm transitioning into product management. These are my skills, these are where I've worked, these are my certifications as well. Then your profile, like your professional experiences, ensure that you add bullet points, show your impact in your work, and then your certifications, and then networking. So networking is, how do you find the right people to network? There's this keyword filter on LinkedIn that you can use. You can probably search recruiter of XYZ company and then list out all the recruiters, then can you connect with them. So you could use that as a tool of networking with people. But another way to build like an authentic brand on LinkedIn is also sharing your story and also like bringing impact. So there's something I always tell people that there are three types of people on LinkedIn, to my own knowledge. There is people that come on LinkedIn to build their brand as a job seeker. There are people that come on LinkedIn to build their brand as an influencer. Then there are those that come on LinkedIn to build their brand as a brand authority. So my best option I would tell anyone to go for is building your brand as a brand authority. Because when you do that, you get the benefit of those two other options. Because when you put yourself out there as a brand authority, you get opportunities, you are seen as a thought leader, stroke influencer in that particular field. For example, like I started building my brand authority intentionally. Let me use that word intentionally. I'm very being very calculative about it last year. And since last year, I've got like a lot of speaking opportunities about remote work, about African space, about career coaching. That was because I actually was very calculative on how like I branded myself on LinkedIn. And that's what branding does to you. Branding opens doors for you. And as a African, as a non-tech going to the remote workspace, like I said before, I had lots of rejections. And just to give like a very short story because of my time, I was job seeking from 2020 to 2021, and till that whole period I had like bad both rejection. And one particular rejection that made me stop applying for a job was when I got to the final stage. I know that was like, I think the last stage was like a 5 minute call with like the director. And what can go wrong with a 5 minute call, right? It's just like, okay, come in, these are the modalities of the whole job. But before I can't, it was by 4:25 p.m. I can't forget that date, guys. That was November 17th, 2021. Yeah, it was 2021. So 5 minutes before the call, I got a message. It was like, "Hi Mary, we noticed that you are based in Nigeria. We can't move on with the call. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for applying." And then that was it. And I got like a lot, I was depressed. Like I cried for like 2 days because like, why me opportunity? I'm so good at this. She was a HR, by the way. And I'm like, finally, I thought I was going to get remote opportunities. And then, and this was what happened to me. So I told myself, I'm going to just brand myself. I'm going to let opportunities come to me than me applying for opportunities. And my focus was on LinkedIn. So December, I rebranded myself on LinkedIn, started talking about remote work, and then I started sharing about my knowledge of remote work. Like I mentioned before, like when I was introducing myself, I have like a legal educational background, so I know most about compliance stuff in employment. So I use that, and then I've worked like in KPMG and Deloitte as like under the HR team. So these knowledges, I put them together. And then one particular post I posted in January was employment law and remote work. And then that post had like 10 likes. But something happened in February, and I got lots of emails in February. I got lots of emails asking for opportunities. People were I felt like a star, man. They're trying to come and poach me. And the one particular opportunity that stood out to me was one founder. She was like, "Hi Mary." She copied my link. I was like, I came across this post on my feed and I really love this post. Currently I'm hiring for a part-time role in EMEA region, and I love your expertise. I'd love to have a call with you. And yes, I got that role, but fortunately for me, I was laid off along the way because of compliance issues. But yeah, I think the baseline of what I'm trying to say is LinkedIn helps with your visibility and also your credibility, because there is a global talent out there, and there's people that are better than you, better than us. And LinkedIn serves as a way of pronouncing your skills to the world that this is who I am. I'm amazing at these skills. Give me a shot. Because when it comes down to Africa, let me tell you guys the truth, right? There is a barrier, and to cross that barrier, you need to show the world that you are worth the shot. And like I said, LinkedIn is a way of showing that you are worth the shot, because if not, no one can see you, no one can see your resume, because before they even look at your resume, they're looking at someone that went to Harvard, that is in the United States and that's in the same region with them. So LinkedIn serves as what they can see and what they can vet, because I always tell people perceived value is actually better than actual value. So yes.
That's a very good way to sort of bring us to the final part of this panel. But I do want to iterate on the fact that in sales they say people buy from people, and the same applies to like hiring. People really hire. It's like these days, if you want to buy something from like an Instagram shop, you want to see which of your friends have used it, so that you can also like trust that they've done it. It's the same if you want to buy from Amazon, or you want to go to a restaurant. You check how many stars other people have given that restaurant, and that is sort of what you see. If people have perceived value, other people are interacting with them on LinkedIn, people seem to be like a good bet, that's when people will take a chance on you. And so we need to make sure that our resumes and our LinkedIn are giving us a good calling card out there, so that when people want to take a chance on us, we don't seem to be too risky. Thank you both so much for that. And now I want to take your closing like comments. What is at least one or two takeaways that people must remember if they forgot anything in this conversation, on how they can obviously ace recruitment and online positioning? Go ahead, Andrea.
Okay, perfect. So I think for me in a remote context, there's this concept called multi-threading, which is developing relationships with multiple stakeholders or decision makers. The way that you can probably go about something like this is interacting with the company, find them on LinkedIn, see, identify your decision maker, start talking to them, start the conversation. With remote work, these opportunities for connections are really limited. So it's up to you to create them. Don't be afraid to talk to a person that's going to be potentially your hiring manager. You want to make sure that you can get along with that person. You're going to be working very closely together. And then the second one for me is, in the context of this job market right now, it is an employer's market, which means there are more candidates looking than companies hiring. So be reactive. There are many applicant tracking systems that integrate with job boards. So when a job advert goes live on the careers page, it automatically sends it to those job boards. So an example of this is LinkedIn, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, CareerJet. And the way that you can potentially find it is go onto the careers page. Sometimes you will see it says they're supported via Workable or Breezy HR or something like that. See if you can find the ATS name, and then just do a quick Google search and see which free job boards does this ATS integrate with. So then you know where more or less you need to keep an eye on.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. So keep your eye on the right job boards and be reactive, but also know that like it's a employer's market, so you need to give them a reason to pick you over everybody else out there. Mary, what are your 2 tips that we can close with for people?
Okay, this is very good. I think my first tip I'll say is tailored application. So whenever you're applying for opportunities, ensure that you tailor your application to the job you're applying for. And I think Jerry also mentioned this in a section where he mentioned that, read out the job description, the skill qualification. Very important for you to read job JDs, for you to understand that, okay, I need to tailor my resume to this particular job, because that is what the recruiter is going to read out. That's what they're going to actually vet for. And it's something I always tell people, because I've been in the hiring space myself. I've helped companies to recruit. And this is a tip, right? When they give me a job JD, like there's a section, there's a recruiter score. That's like the first score you have. I don't really have an idea of what a product manager really does. I just have like the surface idea. Okay, they're meant to have this particular skill, meant to know agile, they're meant to have like Notion. I know it's like basic stuff, right? So, and then I also have like basic skills they're meant to have, which I've seen in the job description. When I'm interviewing, or when I'm like seeing your resume, what I'm doing is I'm trying to match, I'm trying to like mirror. It's called mirroring. So if I see probably you don't have a particular skill which they have said is very important, or particular tools, probably you might not get through that screening process. So ensure that you tailor your resume to the job, and then also ensure that you showcase more of soft skills. And I think this is towards remote opportunity, because I'm in the remote workspace. So soft skills are really important, because during the interviews, that is what is going to showcase you as a perfect candidate. Because we have people that have a lot of amazing expertise, but what people are looking for is cultural fits. Can this person really work in this team? Can they work in this unit? Do they have the share vision with us? Do they have like emotional intelligence to work remote team? Do they have flexibility? Can they adapt? Basically, these are soft skills that you need to showcase in your interviews, in your resume. Tell them that, okay, you have problem solving skills. And to be honest, right, there is no 100% qualified candidate. There's no 100% qualified candidate. So even if you're 75, 65, give it that shot, but ensure that you're showcasing your soft skills as well.
Perfect. There's no 100% candidate. And so, no matter where you are, make sure that you're showcasing the best parts of yourself so that you can at least go through the process. Thank you both so much for this really amazing discussion. And so, we have like a bit of a surprise for everyone in this webinar at the end from Andrea and Mary Esther. But I'm going to keep it until after Priscilla's session, and then I'm going to announce it, because yeah, you need to stay to the end, and you're going to really have a good time with this present. But with that in mind, I think we're ready for a real life story about someone's transition into the no code tech space, and how we can basically tailor our story to represent that, and also like get successful in that way. So without further ado, can we send some final reactions to Priscilla before she comes in? I'm air drumming, doing my drum roll. I can see the hearts and the claps. Amazing. Priscilla, you have the stage.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Priscilla. I'm a people data and operations specialist. I'm currently based in Ghana. I'm currently based in Canada, sorry, but it's a recent move, and I lived in Nigeria for a bit, and I moved to Ghana, where I actually got my first remote job in tech. So today I'm going to be taking you through my journey and my experience so far in the tech space. Our speakers so far have done an amazing job. So I'm just basically here to talk about like a testimony of how what they've said actually works. So yeah, so my career progression started actually my career in course started in 2020. It was COVID, everyone was home, we didn't know what the future held. I had a lot of time on my hands, and then I picked up an interest in marketing. It was actually someone on Twitter who was like always tweeting copyright and stuff. And I followed him, I spoke to him, I asked him, like, what are you on about? What's this about? And then he sent me resources, he sent me books, podcasts, more people to learn from. So I picked that up. And then I niched into email marketing. So email marketing basically in like easy terms is those product emails that you get. I just make sure that they're well curated so that when you click those links, I make sure that you're buying something, and then like my job is practically done. So in 2020, I had an interest in marketing. I think back then I didn't even know what the tech space was about. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that, what, I like using my words, and I want to have some really good call to action buttons for people to click on and then buy stuff. In 2020 also, I was in my third year in uni, I believe. And in 2021, I graduated with a BA in political science and Spanish. So I think one thing that you will notice is that my journey has not been linear. I started in marketing, I ended up in people data, I studied political science and Spanish. So my journey at all has not been linear, but I have been able to take my experiences and my skills at every journey to get to where I am today. So 2021, I did my NSS. NSS is National Service in Ghana. And for those who may not know what NSS is, it's a 1 year work experience that you do after uni in the public or the private sector. So it's mandatory. It's similar to NYSC in Nigeria. So national service, I did not get an HR role, even though like I was like fingers crossed, because I took an HR course in political science. And so I was interested in HR, but I wasn't really pursuing. I was just hoping that I would just find myself in HR, but I did not. I actually found myself in customer service, and I did my NSS for a year. And then in 2022, I got an email marketing job, which was my first job in tech. It was with Mandy, whose founder is here, Joel. And the way that I got that job was because I created a new account to just be sharing my marketing stuff and the stuff that I was learning. So I think Andrea mentioned something about being on LinkedIn and like positioning yourself as a thought leader or something. So I just created a new account, and then I was just sharing marketing stuff. I was following a few accounts. I was following Joel, and so I was just sharing my stuff. Really, I connected with a few people, and I was just sharing as I learned on the way. So I learned something, and I go and just tweet it. It wasn't LinkedIn, but it was Twitter, and then there were people there. And then there was a day that Joel posted something about a new idea that he had, and I replied to that tweet. I wish I could find that tweet and like just show it, but I replied his tweet with an idea that I had about email marketing and how he could like market the idea and the call to action to use. And we did a bit of back and forth on the timeline, and then we ended up talking. We took it to the DMs, and then we got on a call for like 2 hours, and then he asked me, "Do you want to join the Monday team?" And that was my first job. in tech, because Monday is a professional journal for professionals to be able to log their wins and their achievements at work. So they were actually doing something with professionals. And that was my first job. It just happened on a random. I remember that day, it was on a Thursday when I made that tweet. And I was just in my mind, I was just replying, but you know, he was impressed and I got hired through Twitter. So that was a bit unconventional, but that happened. And then I did email marketing for like 2 years or a year and a half. And then so I was doing NSS and then email marketing at the same time, like a part-time sort of thing. And I remember again, Joel came with me and he was like, "Oh, there's a virtual assistant role. Are you interested?" And I got into virtual assistant. That was my second job in tech because I was working for a company based in the UK. But then again, I was working with Joel, and then I remember it was also a Thursday. Good things happen on Thursdays, guys. But on Thursday, I remember I was home, and then I basically just asked myself the question: how do I, tailor my CV? I've done like so many different things in the past. I've volunteered. I've worked in customer service. I've done email marketing. How do I position myself for a virtual assistant role? Because that was what was advertised, right? And we did it. We found a way, and I got in. And that was my second remote job in tech, and that was the first one that paid. And I remember that when the day that I got the offer in the email, and they were like, daily, I was going to be paid a daily rate. And the first thing that I did was I ran to the calendar to just check because, how many days, how many days are there in a month? I was shocked. I initially mentioned some amount in Ghana. So I think I meant like 6K in Ghana cedis. And then I came back with an amount in pounds. And I was just shocked. I was like, what? And that was it. And then from there, I could just officially just call myself a tech girly. I did virtual assistant for exactly 3 months, and then I moved into talent operations specialist within the same company. So my current company, I've been in my current company for about 2 years now. And I've moved to different roles, and then I moved to talent operations specialist, and I did a bit of recruitment and operations, but I really, really didn't like recruitment. Sorry to Andrea, but recruitment is not my thing. And after talent operations, I got a promotion into people data and operations specialist. So I think that's what I've done so far for about 4 years, from marketing to people data. I've had a lot of interest, but I feel like if it's all worked out to be HR in the end, because I did have a desire for HR, because I did HR in my final year in uni, and I was like, oh, I really like this. I want to do this, but it's taken a while to get there, and I think I'm finally there. So that's my career so far. And I want to share some key factors that have got me here. So the first one will be curiosity. I basically just saw what someone was doing on Twitter, and I went to read more about it. I was like, what do you do? How can I get in? Like, what can help me be better in this? And then like I found that it really aligned with what I like to do: communication, get people to take action. And that was it. So it was just me in 2020, third year in uni. I didn't know what I was going to be doing after uni, but I saw something and I was interested and I pursued it, and it's landed me somewhere great today. So if there's someone in this webinar today, not sure, just follow your curiosity. You never know where it's going to land you. Follow your curiosity, be great at it, and it's going to open doors. The second thing is going to be bigger picture. So email marketing specialist, I never really thought that I was going to do like email marketing long term, but the opportunity came to work with Mandy and his amazing team, and I took it. And I mentioned that the virtual assistant role was my first paid role, because my email specialist role was not actually paid monetary terms, but it was paid in areas of networking, of connection, of exposure, and referrals. And this is not me saying that you should, go out there and be working for free, because your time and your skills are valuable. But sometimes what you can get from an experience, even merely putting it on your CV, can open to better doors. So I just say that something like open code. I'm not really sure what that code would do, but open source, whatever. I don't think you're always paid for it, but you have experience and then you put it on your CV and you can be hired by like a proper or another company. So it's just something like that. Sometimes you just have to do stuff that you don't see the immediate monetary payments, but it's going to lead to something, and it's all part of just building your experience. The third thing is mentorship. I don't think Joel knew that he was my mentor at that time because we never really had, or that he is, because we never really had a conversation about, hey, do you want to be my mentor? We just started talking. I just go there and ask him a question, or I go to him and I say, oh, I have another interview lined up, or this is what happened at work, and I don't really know how to solve it. And like the connection just started there, and then I was able to learn from him. And even before I got into contact with Joel, he was always tweeting stuff, and I was bookmarking them. I was learning, and sometimes mentorship is not always direct. Sometimes you can learn from people indirectly, and you don't. I know that sometimes we want to feel closer to them. We want to have their contact and be able to text them at all times, but sometimes you also have to prioritize just getting information and just being able to work with the information that they're providing free of charge. I don't think I have a marketing mentor, but I have so many books that I read about marketing, and like I was able to go there to just find answers to my questions. So I think we need to let go of wanting to always have direct access to our mentors. Like you can learn so much from people, even by what they share around. So be on the lookout for that. And then connection, which is like a direct, it's a direct benefit of everything I had done so far in my first remote job. When I joined the Minded team, there were like different people that I hadn't even met. I don't even think I've met every single person in Minded today, but I was able to connect. So if I know somebody from UX, I know that, oh, there's someone in Minded who was working in UX or marketing or product, and that's how come you're able to like build a connection. Another thing I'll talk about in connection with Mandy was when the virtual assistant role, someone actually referred me, and the person who referred me was also on the Mandy team that I met through Joel. So it's a long route because I met Joel connected with other people, and then like there was a role, and then you're like, oh, can you refer Priscilla? And that's just how it works. And like just be open to like meeting people, and sometimes the benefit is not immediate, but over time, it's gonna come. Because if someone from Mandy comes to me today, or there's a UX designer from Mandy, and I'm like, oh, I've worked with this person, and it's just so easy to just give them a referral. So connection is really important. And then the last thing is going to be continuous improvement. Just keep wanting to improve yourself, your skills. I saw a quote last week that spoke about you can't increase your earnings with the same skills. Like if your skills stay the same, you can't really increase your income. Like sure, you can jump up with things, but it's very important that you keep expanding your skills from trainings to certifications. So yeah, you need to keep building your skills to become relevant, because the same skills that I had from 2023 are not the same skills that I have today. I've built processes, I have migrated systems and stuff. So you want to keep building your stuff. You want to keep building your skills, your connection, and just to stay relevant in the tech space. And that brings me to it. So the key takeaway is it's not going to be linear. Follow your curiosity, bigger picture. Always have a bigger picture in mind of where you want to go. The road to lead there is not always going to be smooth. You might have to do some few unpaid things here and there, but just make sure that whatever experience that you are gaining is very relevant to where you are going, and connect. And yeah, that's me, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
I like the fact that you ended with connect, because that's the whole point, right? Like we can do all of this and build all the skill sets, but if we don't have people vouching for us, it's not going to be the same. This is really great because this sort of brings us to the end of the webinar in terms of like the presentations. But you folks on the call have given us about 18 questions. Joel has done some really good work answering some of them in the Q&A as we've been speaking. But I'm going to take the top 3 unanswered ones, and then we're going to talk about them in the next maybe 5 minutes, and then we can close off, and I can tell you about the gift. So one of the questions that has been voted a lot of times that I want to call out then is, how can I negotiate a higher salary that fits my expertise so that I'm no longer underpaid? So this, I'm going to ask Priscilla to respond to it, because Priscilla just talked about continuous improvement and the fact that yesterday's skill set is not today's skill set, which means yesterday's salary should not be today's salary. So Priscilla, do you want to take that question maybe in the next 1 minute?
Yeah, sure. But can I ask you to repeat that like a word for word so I don't
And
get
how
confused?
can I negotiate a higher salary that fits my current expertise so that I am no longer underpaid?
Your I think you have to just so I don't know how to answer this. I feel like so many things are coming to mind, but you want to show them your value and the things that you were doing in the past. So if you were doing stuff in the past, if you were fulfilling a certain JD in the past, and now you want to move to a higher thing, you want to talk about the values that you have, the values and the achievements that you've been able to achieve, achievements that you've been able to achieve, but the stuff that you've been able to achieve. You just want to show them that you've you just want to talk about the success that you've had in your previous role. I don't know if it makes sense, but you want to leverage your wins and your achievements to be able to negotiate. Does that answer the question? But you want to be able to talk about your achievements. So that means that you need to also keep tab on your achievements, keep a brag sheet, make sure that you're on top of what you've done. And so that could help to justify your new salary. Yes, talk about your skills and your achievements.
Yeah, no,
Sorry, I rambled that as well. I hope you get the point.
No, you're so right. And I agree. Like, it's easier to come to those conversations with some proof, with actual achievements or with actual wins that you've had in the past. Another way to also think about this is that, when was your last performance review? What are the things that your manager called out that they want to see you improve upon? And what have you done in the line of those things that they called out? Because if you can make a direct line, you said this thing and I did this thing to improve along those lines, then you can have that conversation. But the point is that sometimes we overthink it and we never actually go and have the conversation. To be brave, have the conversation. That's how you can start. Even if it doesn't lead to the salary increment, it makes them know that you've sort of like brought it up. And every manager knows that there's only so many times an employee can bring up their salary increments before they are stolen away from you. And so you bring it up the first time, you know that the second time it comes up, it will actually lead to some action. But thank you so much, Priscilla, for that. That is really, really great. Another question here that I wanted to call out is, a scary thing about transitioning is that sometimes if you build in public, your manager might see it and then take it the wrong way. How do you navigate your way if you find yourself in such a situation? So I'm going to venture at this question and then I'm going to tag in Joel. But how I want to like respond to this is, posting on LinkedIn is not always about trying to find a new job. There's a way to post that actually speaks to your what's the word, your authority, building authority in the space that you care about, that can make it be more about uplifting yourself and of course uplifting your company with it, because many companies care about their employees being stars or like influencers or whatever it is that you have, right? And so if you're posting specifically about a space that you care about, it doesn't necessarily always scream that you're trying to run away from the company. It can just be because you are interested in that space. And so the best way to do it is to post not in I sentences, but in, here's what like works, or in way that is obviously away detached from you. That's one way to do it, because you posting online and you gaining followership can actually help you get salary increments in your current company, or even get you to move from your current team to the team that you admire within your company. So it doesn't really necessarily say to your boss that you're trying to leave, if it's coming off as you're trying to build brand and subject matter authority. What do you think as well, Joel?
I really think that that's like a very great submission. The only thing I'll add would be, if right from the beginning you actually look for an opportunity within your organization, and then you are getting the opportunity to like volunteer your skills within the organization, then you can be promoting these things, but also promoting the image of the company.
Yes.
So you act like a typical salesperson, which then says that, hey, I'm working in this company that gives you an opportunity to like build your skills even outside your team. And your boss would actually be excited about that, right? And you can even drop a shout out in the comment section or in the posts. So just look at opportunity to sort of like co-create those posts so that it's not just speaking to the benefits that you're getting,
Promotion.
but also like, yeah, sort of like promoting the company to as well. And it's a win-win for you and the company. And this would work if you are, of course, like volunteering your skills within the organization. And that means that that should be one of the starting points for you when you're looking at transitioning.
Perfect. So I'm going to take the last question, which is, will there be a coaching session after this to help with the navigation process, especially if you join out of curiosity and you identify an opportunity that can be explored? This is a very big question, but it's great because it also helps me to talk about the next thing, which is like the present that we have for you guys. So Andrea and Marie Esther have very, very generously um, uh, agreed to volunteer some time in the next week to do a CV clinic and a LinkedIn slash personal branding clinic. So this is directly stemming from everything that we've discussed today. And so it will be a short time with Andrea and Mariesta in different, obviously, meeting rooms where you can discuss, come with your questions and ask. And basically, you're going to see an example of a CV. She's going to talk you through it, and then you can come with your questions. The same with Mariesta. She's going to take you through the various parts of your LinkedIn profile and how to make that stand out and work for you. So we're going to send, and that's only open to people who showed up to this webinar, by the way. So you're already special. We're going to send you the meeting details and the link to join right after this call. And so those of you who are in here, look forward to that message from us. But the second thing to answer that about coaching or anything that is going to happen after here is that for all of you who registered for this webinar, we're going to invite you to the No Code Techies community. And on that community, we have channels like Transitioning into Tech. If you want to have mock interviews because you've already applied and you want some help with your application, and we also have a channel where if you want someone to help review your CV, you can also like request it. So you can all join that community, and basically we can help each other get into the tech careers that we are looking forward to joining. And so without further ado, find your speakers on LinkedIn, find Joel on LinkedIn, find Andrea, find Marie Esther, find Priscilla. Of course, follow NoCode Techies on LinkedIn and on Twitter to help us reach more people like you. Follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter and keep up with what's happening. If you have any questions, you can email me. You can send a DM to us on any of those platforms as well. And I'm really grateful to all of you for spending the last 2 hours with us. And we only have 2 minutes left. So if you haven't yet put your LinkedIn in the